Holmes.
Here.
Alderman Tindem. Here. Alderman Grover.
Here.
Alderman Margaret. Alderman Vivian.
Say hi. Say here.
Alderman Vivian.
Say here. Can you say here? Oh, yeah. She thought it.
She's here.
Alderman Rainey.
Here.
Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you.
8-0.
We have a quorum. Welcome to the... Where's Alderman Fisk? She was here. Okay, sorry. Welcome to the Monday, March 23rd meeting of the Evanston City Council. The first item on the agenda is Mayor's public announcements and proclamations. I have a proclamation for the School for Little Children's 80th anniversary. Whereas the School for Little Children opened its doors on October 1st, 1934 at the First Presbyterian Church House, welcoming their first class of 3- and 4-year-old children, and whereas a total of 6 directors have led the school from 1934 to the current school year, and whereas School for Little Children is a unique preschool serving 175 young children 2 to 5 years of age, and whereas School for Little Children was the first part-day program in Evanston to receive an esteemed accreditation from the National Association for the Education of Young Children, and whereas today more than 20 home languages are represented in School for Little Children's school enrollment, and whereas with a long-standing history, School for Little Children remains a pillar in the early education community, upholding its mission to provide quality early education in a community that embraces individuality and diversity while promoting the social, emotional, and cognitive development of its students. Now, therefore, I, Elizabeth B. Tisdall, Mayor of the City of Evanston, do hereby proclaim March 23rd, 2015 as School for Little Children Day in commemoration of their 80th anniversary in the City of Evanston. Is Carol Teskey here to... Aha! There she is. Congratulations.
On behalf of all of the families and children who are part of School for Little Children's school community, I thank you. And especially thank everyone for coming tonight. All our, some graduates, some current students, parents, and even a very special member of our community, Michael Arrington, who is part of School for Little Children. Celebrating his birthday tomorrow.
Mayor Tisdall, could they all come up and get a big picture?
I'll take that right back. Take that.
She'll be right back.
Here. Wait. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, look, they were all over there.
And it is National Public Health Week, April 6th through 12th. And I would very much like to announce the Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Job Fair is March 28th, 2015. And somewhere here, yes, it says 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Evanston Township High School. The doors will close at 1:30 p.m. Please enter door 18 on Dodge Avenue, and all students will exit door 50. So anyone who wants a job for the summer who is 14 to 18 years old, please come. That concludes. Oh, and I'm very sorry to announce that Mayor Joan Barr died, and her funeral services will be on Saturday at St. Mark's at 10 a.m. Joan was the first woman to be elected mayor in the city of Evanston, and she was also president of the Northwest Municipal Conference. She was loved by many of us, and she will be deeply, deeply missed. City Manager, do you have announcements?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, good evening. First, we'd like to recognize some individuals and some projects that have recently been honored by the American Public Works Association, both the Suburban Chicago branch as well as the Chicago Metro chapter branch. And Director Suzette Robinson and I will do the honors. And first, I'd like to ask Suzette to come up and talk first about the Project of the Year award that we received. Suzette, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, and Clerk Green. Suzette Robinson, the Director of Public Works. As City Manager Bob Kowitz indicated, we were 4 for 4. We were up for 4 awards at the suburban branch level, and we were successful in receiving 4 awards for a variety of projects and individuals. For the Lakefront Lagoon Restoration Project, we received the APWA Suburban Branch Award, and then we also received the Chicago Metro Chapter Award Project of the Year for Historic Preservation. What is unique in terms of the Chicago Metro Chapter, it includes the city of Chicago, all of the surrounding suburbs on the south side, as well as the north side, and as far as, I guess that's west to Fox Valley area as well. So Lake County included as well. So lots of different cities, and Evanston was successful. So the lagoon is roughly 4.5 acre public space located along the shores of Lake Michigan, just east of Church Street in the city of Evanston. The facility includes a park shelter, walking path, large lagoon basin with stone walls, fountain jets, stone waterfall, stage lighting, site furnishings, and extensive landscaping. The site has been in existence for at least a century, with portions of its current configuration created during the 1930s. As a result, the site is historically significant for the city and is considered the heart of its lakefront park system. The facility is currently used extensively throughout the year for city programmed events, including summer concerts, summer festival, and winter ice skating, as well as day-to-day passive leisure activities such as walking, cycling, jogging, and picnicking, to name a few. The facility was last renovated in the 1980s with construction of the fountain, basins, masonry walls, and perimeter paths. Due to a deterioration from the age plus wear and tear, the lagoon was in need of substantial rehabilitation. In 2008, a comprehensive master plan for Evanston's lakefront properties was completed, of which this project was emphasized as a central focus. This project, as a result of winning the award, will go on to compete for recognition at the national level in August. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank the consultants that were involved, which is Kettle Camp and Kettle Camp Landscape Architects, who are here, and Klaus Brothers Inc. was the contractor. So there are 2 people here as well that I would like to recognize. First and foremost would be Stephanie Levine, who was the project manager. We heard Alderman Nguyen say several wonderful things about Stephanie, and I will agree with all of them, plus, meaning that she goes above and beyond and is able to adapt in all situations. I think you talked about her calm, cool leadership in terms of being able to move through difficult situations and really get the project done. So thank you very much, Stephanie. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Arrington, I would like to recognize him. This project, we received funding from DNR in the form of a grant of $400,000. The city contributed about $600,000, and Mr. Arrington, a resident of Evanston, also contributed $500,000, and he would like an opportunity to come forward. The public-private partnership of this project really helped this project be recognized by APWA, and we would not have been able to do the quality job that we were had it not been for his, not only the financial donation, but he also was an inspiration, and he had a clear vision of what he wanted to see in this space as well. And I think we were able to handle all of that along with Stephanie and Kettle Camp's design to have something that he was really pleased with. So Mr. Arrington wanted to come forward and say a few words.
Please do.
Well, I think I've established that I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Evanston, starting out in 1945 when I was 2 or 3 years old at the Little School for Children. So it's very exciting to be here on the evening that I'm receiving an award for the Arrington Lakefront Lagoon and being able to participate with the school. I've lived here all my life. Since 43, and I raised my children here, and my grandchildren are going to the same school system that I went to. My daughter, Jennifer Arrington Breen, is sitting over here, and she's very involved in the community itself. In fact, I resurrected an article from the Evanston Review from 1959 where I participated in an ice skating contest down at the lagoon when I was 12 years old. So I do have a vested interest in the community. Most of you know my father, Senator W. Russell Arrington, served this community for 28 years from Evanston in the North Shore suburbs. And I wanted to do something that would be a memorial to my dad and everything he's done to contribute to Evanston and the lakefront and our surrounding communities. And you won't believe it, Alderman Nguyen, but I contacted you back in 2010 to see if we could jointly talk to the mayor about some project. And I had some crazy idea of naming some park somewhere, and actually they said, well, you know, Mr. Arrington, we have a much more important project down here along the lake and preserving the lakefront. And we decided to do something for the lagoon. And it's an incredibly exciting project. It's taken 5 years, hard to believe, but it's been a wonderful project. I think what's unusual, I think it's one of the, I don't know if it's the largest or one of the largest in Evanston or the state of Illinois, but it's very unique to have a member of the public and the community come together with the local community and city government to try to establish something good for the community. It doesn't happen every day. And I was very excited to be part of this, and the team that was put together to make this whole thing happen. It was unbelievable, a lot of fun, very exciting, and yes, I did have a vision, I did have a passion for this, and it's, I think, most rewarding that it's happening right here at the lakefront. My father was instrumental in providing legislation that allowed Northwestern to expand its campus into the lake. And here we are just a few hundred yards down the road here many years later doing something for the lagoon and the Evanston community. So I'm very happy to be part of this whole process and to have shepherded and helped get the $400,000 from the Department of Natural Resources. I'm fortunate to have a relationship with the Speaker and the President of the Senate and former Governor Jim Edgar, and they all were very excited about the project and contributed. And I think we have a golden jewel down here on our lakefront. Thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Suzette, I think we have the plaques,
Yeah,
right?
the plaques, and if we can.
Get everyone
Mr.
to do a
Arrington, if
picture,
you
that'd
come
be
and do a
great.
picture. Come on, Kettle Can,
Mary, do you want-
everybody.
You want me?
Absolutely.
Yes. We'll hold the fancy dances one. You can hold fancy dancy part two.
Let me get one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Good job.
Madam Mayor, could you a couple more to give? We're fortunate, as Director Robinson mentioned, there were 3 additional awards granted to the city. One was for the APWA Suburban Branch Contractor of the Year, which went to ALAM Concrete Contractors. Director Robinson, I don't believe we have a representative from ALAM here, do we? But ALAMP was nominated by the city for their work with the 2013 street resurfacing project. Given all of the difficulties and weather, they did an outstanding job. So we recognize ALAMP for the great work that they've done. The third award was recognized by the APWA Suburban Branch as well as the Chicago Metro chapter, and that was the Award of Merit given to Stephen Walker of our Public Works staff. Stephen Walker of our Public Works staff. Stephen here? Stephen is an exemplary worker and has contributed greatly to the success of the Department of Public Works. The City of Evanston is pleased to have him on its team. Since the beginning of his tenure, he has ensured that each task assigned has been completed beyond expectation. He has shown commitment, dedication, and skills beyond those required for his position as an equipment operator, too. He has literally transformed areas, improving the community standards. Mr. Walker has received commendations from his supervisors, the city manager, elected officials, and residents for quality of work he's performed. In addition, he has developed cost-saving techniques for the city's street sweeping operation, which resulted in over $40,000 in savings. As a volunteer on the city's Healthy Living Committee, he not only designated a workout facility for Public Works field employees, he also secured a donation of equipment valued at $25,000 for the facility. Mr. Walker was selected as a temporary supervisor by Director Robinson to apply his talents and abilities to make improvements using his own discretion. Mr. Walker has performed superbly as a temporary supervisor of the section. He has prepared detailed reports of personnel, made resource efficiencies and greater dynamic and dramatic improvements. Under his supervision, he has made grass and flowers grow in bare areas. His selections of new plantings have been impactful and transformative. He has accomplished these changes in a cost-effective manner and has even secured donations to achieve these endeavors. He has proven to be an eyes-wide-open type leader, noting deficiencies and taking initiative to fix them. Stefan will now go on to compete for recognition from the National American for Public Work Association for Public Works in August. So congratulations for receiving the Award of Merit. And Madam Mayor, if you and Director Robinson would pose for a picture. And the family too. Go ahead, say something.
Yes.
I'm not one to do a lot of public speaking, but I too was born and raised here, so I take pride in everything that I do for the community because I've watched this community grow over the years. And I just to give back my part of what I can do to make it a better place. But none of it could I have ever done without the help of my director, my assistant director, Paul DiAugustino. So I have to thank them also for giving me the opportunity to be who I am today. So, thank you.
And Mayor, one more. And our final award, which is not only from the APWA Suburban Branch, but also the Chicago Metro Chapter, is the Community Involvement Award to Suzette Robinson, our Director of Public Works. Ms. Robinson has been with the Public Works Department since April 2006. She's been a dynamic force for positive and constructive changes within the Public Works Department. Under her leadership, the department participates in the Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Program. Ms. Robinson has taken a hands-on approach to the program's operation and ensured that teens develop not only job skills, but a pertinent sense of self and self-esteem through her development of a concurrent reading program. Many of the students that she has interacted with and aided have gone forward to secure full-time employment opportunities and acceptance into college. She has worked alongside students, helping them with college searches, applications, financial aid, ACT test prep, as well as providing information on any job opportunities that she's aware of. She has attended many of the teens' extracurricular activities and sporting events, and she ensures that the program is more than just a job and is instead a transformative part of the teens' lives. Suzette will now go on to compete for recognition at the national level in August. Suzette, congratulations.
First of all, I would like to thank Leslie Perez for nominating me. I believe he is here. Thank you, Leslie. He's the business office coordinator, administrative supervisor for the Public Works Department, and has been very patient and tolerant as we've had a variety of youth moving through the offices, as well as in the field, as well as managing the payroll process and all of those other things. This award probably means more to me than anything. I really enjoy spending the time with the youth of Evanston. I learn a lot. Not only it makes me appear hip to my teenager, because I know all of the stuff that she's talking about, so which is really great, and the lingo that they use. So that's very helpful. But the most important part, that when the kids ask me why do I have them read, one of the things that I ask them is, you know, how many of you have had parents that read to them when they were younger that you remember? And only 2 or 3 will raise their hand. And then I ask, how many of you would like it if your parents had read to you? And almost all of them raise their hand. And so what a way to break the cycle for you to learn how to read and be comfortable reading out loud, because I also have them read out loud, to read out loud so that you can share that experience with your children. So thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, one final announcement, two final announcements. One, a reminder about Evanston Day in Springfield coming up on Tuesday, April the 14th. For further information, you can go to our website. We'd be happy to have more folks. There's some additional spaces on the bus to go down to Springfield for the day to advocate on behalf of Evanston. And then finally, I never thought we would get here, but it's going to finally be the Earth Hour Day on Saturday, March 28th from 8:30 to 9 p.m. Again, information on our website. We're encouraging all of our residents to participate. As you know, we are the U.S. Earth Hour capital. We will be continue to compete for the World Earth Hour title. Mayor Tisdall and Ms. Hurley will be in Seoul, South Korea, the first week of April, and when that is announced. So we're very excited about that, but we would encourage all of our residents to participate on Saturday with Earth Hour. And Madam Mayor, that concludes my announcements.
Thank you. City Clerk, do you have communications?
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council. Just turned up. Today was the first day of early voting. For those who haven't voted, please get out and vote. There will be early voting in room 2200 in the Civic Center, and we'll be going through to Saturday, April the 4th. Then on the 7th of April, that is your final day to put in your vote. Make sure you get your vote in. If you don't vote, you will lose your opportunity to complain. So get out and vote. The other thing is there's been some changes in the obtaining your transfer stamps for your properties being sold here. So if you check the clerk's website, you'll find out the new changes. And before you come in, we are asking that you do a five-day business day to ask for your final water bill, so that when your water bill is done 2 days before your closing, you'll have everything in order. The prices are there. We also have a link where you can go and see exactly how much tax you got to pay on your property, so that you can get all that done before you come there, so that you don't have to wait. So if you look at that, and if you have any questions, you can always call the clerk's office to ask any questions about the new changes. And that's all we have for this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, City Clerk. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Each of you, please state your name, and you each have 3 minutes. I'm going to call the first 4 speakers, and please come after in the same order I call you: Junad Rizki, Carl Bova, Denise Stoneback, and Ralph Zarumba. Thank you. You're next. You're 5th. I said I'd call the first 4. Don't worry.
Junad Rizki. Should we all thank Northwestern University for giving us $5 million or $1 million a year? Given that the governor is going to cut $3.7 million, that means we have a potential reduction to $2.7. Although I have some uncertainty in all this, given the whole deal has some strings attached, as I read, because the mayor of Northwestern would be picking the projects. Therefore, is Northwestern University going to be leveraging our capital plan with the mayor helping? When we look at the water tank deal that was coming down, that was $800,000 that Northwestern would have to pay. And we have an ordinance tonight on Lincoln Street, which basically is repaving the street, which is a $600,000. That's $1.4 million, or 30% of roughly of the $5 million. To me, there's not a heck of a lot of value in those things for Evanston residents or for the city's operating fund. So if the things are going to capital, that's all they're going to. And it's rather interesting. And maybe someone on the council or the mayor tonight could enlighten us of what these projects, how these projects are, if they're part of the $5 million. I would like to know. Of course, we could use that money for other things, such as Sheridan Road, which I believe is grossly underfunded, and you're not going to be able to do because of the underground issues that happened. You had to delay the project. So would be money well spent between the city and Northwestern. Also, there's other things that are of great importance. As I heard Mr. Stonebeck say, he doesn't have the money to fix the 30-inch water main under Sherman. Well, you know what's going to happen if that breaks, because there always was concern. He didn't mention this, but that's probably 6 times the amount of water is going to come out of that pipe that comes out of the regular pipes. It's going to put a very large hole in the middle of the street if it comes out at the right time, or the wrong time, I should say. You might have a sinkhole there. Northwestern's funds would probably be better used on that. And then finally, on another matter I'll close on, 1571 Maple. I have filed a FOIA on this to understand some of the issues, and I have not received it yet. But as I stated before, I feel the developer needs to buy the garage spaces. The city should not be leasing them, but they should be selling those spaces and make the developer pay so the city can recoup some of that money. We should not be giving a developer basically a free ride here to not build where other developers are at a disadvantage. And frankly, this is not a good thing, and the city needs to recoup its money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Carl Bova. My comments are directed at 1571 Maple. Spillover, spillover, spillover. That's the reason for the establishment of parking ratios in the 50s and 60s. The stated reason for no parking provided on site at 1571 is, well, not founded in fact by the developer or the Center for Neighborhood Technology, whose support letter is filled with half-truths at best. Once again, I request that this council conduct an unbiased study of this nagging issue. Consider downtown. The North Shore Hotel, King Home, YMCA, and the Mather Home have about 670 residents, but only 240 cars. 36% of the households have cars. If you don't count Mather, because it's largely independent living, it's only 11% with cars. No wonder the CNT and the developer are saying the number of cars per unit is far less than 1. Yet our staff does not investigate the developer's assertions, and no mention of the residential uses by seniors throughout our downtown, and no such discussion or meaningful line of questioning by the Plan Commission. This is unacceptable to me and probably a few folks on this council. So I ask you to do something about it. As for TOD, just look at CTA and Metro ridership downtown. At Davis Street, ridership has only increased 714 riders from 2006 to 2014, even though the population has increased by about 4 or 5 times as much. That's not TOD. Guess what? They are driving and they own cars. Spillover, 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 and minuscule increased transit usage. That's what will result if you approve this development. Remember, the number of households without cars has reduced between 1980 and 2000, about 15.8% in 1980, but only 14% in 2000. The number of cars on the state's registration list in Evanston has increased from 43,000 in 2007 to 48,000 in 2014. Keep in mind that the Central Station development has reached its parking capacity, and trouble has started with respect to the spillover there. Also, that 1600 West Division building in Chicago still has its 2-bedroom apartments available, and that renters there are reporting real problems finding off-street parking.
Carl, you need to wrap up.
Regardless of where it is, these developments are causing spillover and decreasing the quality of life. Make this development smaller scale, add parking, and be happy that the developer will still be making a handsome profit, but not on our dime. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Tisdale and members of the City Council. Denise Stoneback, thank you for introducing the firearms ordinance. I appreciate your efforts to provide safety for the Evanston community while complying with local and national law. At the last AP&W meeting and City Council meeting, I urged the committee to send the ordinance back to staff for further review to potentially increase the permissible distance between a gun range and a school. Staff had recommended maintaining the 250-foot distance, and the ordinance was amended this evening in committee to 350 feet. I would like to thank the committee for increasing the distance. At the committee hearing, Alderman Rainey said that she would like to look at including specific restrictions on ranges in the building code in a potential trailer bill. I would encourage you to include additional restrictions as safeguards in case a gun range locates in Evanston. I encourage you to include construction requirements on a range's building materials, supply and exhaust system, noise, sound, and air quality control. I also encourage you to include restrictions on business operations, which were upheld by the court, including age restrictions and a requirement for the range master to be present during all operating hours. I appreciate staff's attempt to walk a fine line to avoid litigation, but these are restrictions that have already been challenged by the court and withstood the challenge, so there's no reason to not include them in Evanston. In addition, Skokie's ordinance was mentioned during the discussion. Skokie's code does address many of these concerns. It states all safety, environmental security, ventilation, and noise pollution concerns must be satisfactorily addressed and meet the approval of the Chief of Police and Village Community Development Department Building Division before an application for range will be processed. Skokie also includes a minimum age requirement in its ordinance and requires a criminal background investigation of all owners and operators of a proposed range. In addition, the City of Chicago's Tracing the Guns report, published last year, provides steps gun dealers can take to reduce the chances their guns will end up in crimes, such as anti-theft safety plans, videotaping of all sales, employee background checks, and training. Evanston could integrate these requirements into its ordinance or trailer bill to put safeguards in place if a gun dealer were to be located in Evanston. This would also make it more challenging for a gun dealer to operate, thus deterring a potential gun dealer from attempting to locate in Evanston. This is not just any special use. This is a gun range and requires special attention. The Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence in San Francisco, California, is a national law center focused on providing comprehensive legal expertise in support of gun violence prevention and the promotion of smart gun laws. The Law Center has...
Stoneback, I do need you to wrap up.
Okay, I'm wrapping up. The Law Center has expressed a willingness to assist Evanston staff with drafting a stronger law that would likely withstand a court challenge. I am happy to facilitate that introduction, and even if you don't feel that a gun range is imminently coming to Evanston, this ordinance is important, and I encourage you to do as much as you can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Ralph Sarumba, a resident of Evanston. I am also here to speak. I was at the previous session, on the planning session, on the firearm ordinance. There was a comment made that when they were debating the distance for the parcels, how close it could be to a school, that there are currently no parcels up for sale, but there was also a comment from one of the members of the council that anything is up for sale. And I want to reiterate that. This is not a problem that I think is distant into the future. It is probably a problem we're going to be dealing with shortly. Secondly, I think there needs to be safeguards. This is a special facility. It has special issues. I could speak with this, maybe not authority in firearms, but I have 30 years in experience in the electric power industry. I have gone through siting hearings. I have testified as an expert. There are hundreds of issues that need to be addressed in terms of safety, environmental issues, noise, even potentially traffic patterns, things that you will have to deal with. I think this needs to be studied in a very rigorous fashion, and very high standards need to be established in order to ensure the safety and the comfort of the citizens of Evanston. Thank you.
Thank you. The next four names are Jerry Specht, Sean Feiger, Doug Fusen, and Howard Ellman.
My name is Jerry Specht. I and my family have lived at 9342 Linkwood Drive in zip code 60203, that's Skokie, Evanston, for the past 28 years. I find the idea that Evanston would pass an ordinance allowing gun shops/ranges to be closer to schools than the ordinance that the City of Chicago has passed rather puzzling. I suggest that we need to have an ordinance which allows these shops ranges to be no closer than at least 500 feet. I won't repeat them, but I certainly second the additional safeguards suggested by the two previous speakers. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you.
I think that when you said Sean, whatever you said, you actually meant Sharon Fagan.
That's probably who I meant. Sorry, Sharon.
Okay. So I'm Sharon Fagan, and I'm a Evanston resident, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the Citizens for Greener Evanston. And first, I just want to say we're also very excited about the approaching Earth Hour and Evanston's role in that. And also, since I haven't been here in a while, I just wanted to express appreciation in general for, I think, the progress that Evanston has been making on the environmental front. So that's it's really positive and exciting. And as part of that, at our last meeting, when we heard that the Maple project was coming up for consideration tonight, we thought we would take it as an opportunity to comment on the need for the city to enact a transit-oriented development ordinance, and just encourage you to think about that, and that the Maple project is actually a very good start in that direction, and we wanted to speak favorably in terms of a number of aspects of that project. And one is, to start with, is just the reduction in parking, which we really favor and think is quite in line both with national trends and reductions in car ownership and even in driver's licenses amongst younger people. And I think it's really a win-win situation to utilize the underutilized Maple garage, because actually I was on the Plan Commission when that was built, and as I recall, there was a quite heated debate about the size of it at that time. And clearly it was overbuilt because it's at 50% capacity. So I think it's it's an opportunity to use, we're all paying for that garage, and this is a way to get some utilization of it, and at the same time not overbuild at in this new project. The other aspects that we really favor are the placement of shared mobility in the project, both the requirements for car sharing and for bike sharing and bike storage. And in the work that I do nationally as the executive director of the Shared Use Mobility Center, we look at the metrics of and the impacts of shared mobility on transit use and on car ownership. And we find that making those kinds of things available, actually people start using them and it reduces their car usage. So we think that's right in the a really good idea. And also putting having the developer pay for the divvy station, is quite quite appropriate and positive. And then in addition to that, putting money into an affordable housing fund is another thing that is in line with typical ordinances of this sort, and I think is really good. But when we discussed this at our meeting, we also thought that you could actually add a zero to the total, because I think right now it's 120,000 contribution, and when you consider the amount of savings from the reduction in the parking construction, $1 million might be more appropriate. And the other thing we wanted to note that was missing that seems to be in most of these ordinances, and I think would be a positive thing, is also to have the developer pay for transit passes for the residents for the first year, because it's just another way to reinforce that transit use and make it easy, and sort of with the idea that you get in the habit, you continue it. So, so that's really what I
do need you to wrap up.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Mayor Tisdall, members of the council. My name is Doug Fusen. I've spoken to some of you before at the Planning Committee. I've spoken before the Planning and Development Commission. My wife and I own a condominium on the north side of 1570 Elmwood Avenue, and I'm speaking in opposition to the request for approval of the high-rise apartment building next door to us, which we will look into. I emailed written comments to each of you on March 3rd and spoke as well at the Planning Committee hearing on March 9th. My comments then, which focused on the planned development ordinances incorporation of the requirements of the plan for downtown Evanston, are summarized in the draft minutes from the Planning Committee's meeting. I don't intend to repeat all of that here. I hope that you have read them, and if you have not, I encourage you to do so before you make any decisions on this matter. What I would like to stress here is that, as my neighbor David Rosen told the Planning Committee 2 weeks ago, the city itself was providing information to prospective buyers in our building, people like Mr. Rosen, and I would add also to their brokers that the maximum height of a building which could be constructed next door to our building on the north side, where this parcel is, was 4 stories high. This is just as indicated by the 42-foot height limit in the plan for downtown Evanston for the West Side Traditional District in which this particular parcel lies, so that anybody looking at the downtown plan, whether it's a city employee or whether it was a member of the public, would look at this and they would say, okay, the building can only be 42 feet high, which is about the height of our parking structure, unless people really jump through a lot of hoops by way of extraordinary public benefits to permit them to go higher up to about 80 or thereabouts feet. At the Planning Commission, it was asserted that anybody who cared about what might be built next door should hire a lawyer to go out and research the zoning ordinances and give them a legal opinion about what could or couldn't be built. I don't think that this city council has to accept that level of cynicism about the operations of the city. If Evanston can't permit prospective home buyers to believe what they are told by city representatives and by people who had also talked to city representatives about what is or isn't permitted, I think the city will have lost a lot of its integrity. In fairness to those of us who bought homes in 1570 Elmwood, and I stress, we are homeowners. We didn't develop that building. We didn't put it up there and then tell anybody anything they wanted to hear in order to get them to buy. We're the people who put our money into our homes, just as all of you put money into your homes, whether they're single-family residences on the northwest side or anywhere else.
I do need you to wrap up.
I will do that.
Thank you.
I think in keeping with what I perceive as the mandatory requirements of the Plan Development Ordinance, you must reject this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Howard Ellman, and I'm the president of the Winthrop Club Condo Association. I assume by now you're all tired of getting my emails, but I appreciate the fact that you have read them and read their attachments also, and I also appreciate your attention to this important issue, and I hope the points that I have raised in my communication have resonated with you. As I've stated in my previous communications, we're not opposed to a development on this land, but we are opposed to this specific development. As currently proposed, it's the wrong development for the land available. It is too big for the land available. The developer is asking for too many allowances over the base D3 and downtown plan zoning. It will have a negative effect on the neighborhood and neighboring properties, and its approval would be a bad precedent to set. A compromise would be the best way forward. Keeping the unit mix the same but reducing the total units allowed would alleviate a lot of potential issues, such as relieving potential congestion, reducing parking requirements, reducing building scale, and bringing this development closer to compliance with D3 and downtown plan zoning. This same developer made a similar compromise in Chicago's Wicker Park neighborhood. Why? Because Chicago asked them to. Evanston should ask for compromises also. The goal should not be to optimize a developer's profitability, but to seek balance between the developer's objectives and existing neighborhood and neighbors' concerns. Please do not approve this project as proposed. Please ask the developer to make changes and scale it back. Evanston is an extremely desirable place for downtown development. We are in a position of strength. We don't have to give allowances away to get this land developed. I, along with a group of concerned neighbors, met with this developer a week ago. We asked for compromise. We were told no. If the city required compromise, we would get it. Please require it. Do not approve this development as is. Compromise is the best solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is George Martin, Peggy Tarr, Betty Esther, and Steve Lewis.
Good evening. My name is George Martin. I live at 1570 Elmwood in Evanston, and I am here to speak against the proposed development at 1571 Maple. I guess I should start by saying I strongly endorse the comments of my two immediate predecessors. And I don't want to repeat all the same arguments that have been used before, but I would like to comment on a couple of things. One is that why do we have zoning rules in the first place? I assume it is in order to establish and preserve certain quality of life standards in the community. If we wanted to ignore or scrap all our zoning variations, we could be like Houston and have, in theory, a chemical waste facility sandwiched between a restaurant and an elementary school. I don't think we want to do that. We have zoning rules, and I think that we've got to presume that they are in place for a good reason. Now, in my own only experience of personally trying to deal with zoning laws was about 20 years ago when I lived with my family about a mile and a half from here, and we wanted to get a two-car garage built in the back of our property where strict zoning would have only allowed for a one-car garage. In order to get this zoning variance done, I had to get a petition circulated among all of my neighbors whose properties were within 200 feet radius of mine, indicating that they knew about our building plans and they had no objections. And I had all of our neighbors within that radius signing off on it. And in addition to that, I had to make the case of why a zoning variance should be granted, because we live near the Northwestern University athletic fields, and a certain number of times per year, a one-car garage would have been a real burden on me. In this case, we're looking at the prospect of the people who bought in, as has been noted, at 1570 Elmwood, a serious decline in the quality of life and a corresponding quality of property values at 1570 Elmwood, and I really don't see any community compensating values. If we've got to pay the price for God knows what, I mean, if you overbuilt some parking garage in the area, I don't really see that as being much of a justification of having a huge apartment complex with very few parking spaces. I strongly urge you to reject the development as currently proposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Peggy Tarr. I live at 907 Sherman Avenue. And I'm here again in reference to Revolution X, but tonight I want to focus on the actions or inactions of the Evanston Police Department in response to complaints about Revolution X noise, complaints that have been ongoing since Revolution X, formerly known as Revolution Spin, opened at 904 Sherman Avenue. I sent a certified letter to Police Chief Eddington on March 11, 2015, which reads as follows. Chief Eddington, for months I've been given conflicting information as to whether or not Evanston police officers will respond to complaints about noise from Revolution X, located at 904-906 Sherman Avenue. Please let me know in writing if Evanston police officers will or will not respond to complaints about Revolution X noise. If the answer is that officers will respond, please let me know in what way they will respond. Thank you. I've received no response. I had written a lot to say tonight, but I'm not going to say it. Much of what I had written has been said before. My concerns about a particular police officer as far as her interactions with me. So now I'm being forced to say in public what I've been trying to say in private. I don't want to have anything to do with Officer Henderson, and I don't want Officer Henderson to have anything to do with me.
Could you please take your personnel problems?
The fact that my alderman, Alderman Wilson, I've talked with him about this, and I've talked with you and the city council about this. I've never, ever experienced the fear and disrespect I now feel for Evanston police officers because of the harassment and intimidation I have suffered while trying to make the city of Evanston enforce its noise ordinances and require Revolution X to stop depriving residents of peace and quiet with its noise. On a positive note, I want to congratulate Alderman Burris for her appointment to Princeton University. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Betty Esther. We've been hearing a lot by Governor Rauner and the things that he plans to do in the Evanston Roundtable and in emails from the city government message. We have got the news that Evanston might lose $3.7 million if the governor goes ahead with his plan with the budget. So this was money that was earmarked for fiscal year 2015 and possibly 2016. This past week, I received a message that came through the city government message center, which stated that possibly 42 jobs, program, project, etc., will have to go on hold or will be cut, with no clear identification of what type of job, which program, or which project, what is the impact that this will have on the daily city operation. I was surprised to see in tonight's agenda some projects going forth without looking at, can these projects be put on hold? Do we need to discuss and understand if this happened, what will be the impact to us and to the city? What programs? Or are we, because we do know when projects are put forth and work, they do have the tendency of having overruns, which means they cost more than which was bidded for. So we need to discuss this and we need to be discussing this with the citizens. We asked them to be in part of the budget. Don't you think we should be part of maybe making changes to it? Thank you.
Thank you.
City Council, thanks for letting me speak. I'm Steve Lewis. I live at on Maple Street, just a few blocks south of the proposed 1541 development. And I don't want to repeat what's already been said. However, it's clear we need adequate parking. If you ever try to go to downtown Evanston on the weekend, it's impossible to park. What I've seen when I go to Lincoln Park or more populated parts of the city is that young folks who rent, who don't have spots, will often hijack the spots on the weekend. I'm really concerned about the local businesses and their viability when those spots are no longer available on the street. So we've heard the term transit-oriented development, and it's been hijacked from what it was originally. I'm from Minneapolis, St. Paul. We used it to drive train building into the city. Transit-oriented development isn't about building more units with no parking. If that were the case, we're done, because we have lots of housing stock from the 19th and early 20th centuries with inadequate parking. We don't need more of that. That location, if you step back and think about the North Shore, it is an incredible location. There are two train systems that are within walking distance. There's nowhere else in Chicagoland that has this. It'd be a fantastic spot for business, for meeting, other kinds of commercial activities. We don't need another apartment building, and we certainly don't need something that architecturally looks like what we've seen planned. Thank you. Please vote against this.
Thank you. And last is Jim Mazzell. Thank you.
I stole this out of the library lobby, so I'm going to return it tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. I want to obviously tell you or remind you about the screening this Saturday at 1 o'clock in honor of National Women's History Month at the library. But more importantly, I'd like to just express my gratitude for the kind of collaboration that we were able to put together in creating this documentary. I was very fortunate that the Women's Club was celebrating its 125th anniversary last year, and that they had already commissioned a book to be written utilizing the archives of Northwestern, and that the Women's Club was so kind in letting us share in the research that was done. The research produced 140 just extraordinary photos. And as you can see by the photo at the top there was kind of a Wild West kind of period in Evanston history. The development of the Women's Club of Evanston is really an extraordinary story. The collaboration was also reinforced by the Evanston Public Library, by the Ridgefield Band, and by a number of other organizations in the community. And I think collaborations are obviously very desirable when you've been involved in putting one together. It's something that you really want to be able to tell other people about, because I think that's the fundamental aspect of community engagement and community building, people willing to forge collaborations. So I urge you, if you don't have a chance to see the documentary on Saturday, once again at 1 p.m. at the library, that you think seriously about the kinds of collaborations that are possible in the community. And the Women's Club story is a great story of collaboration, and it comes out of a time when there virtually was no social services, social welfare at any level of government in the latter part of the 19th century when this organization was created. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes citizen comment. City Manager, we have Special Order of Business Fiscal Year 2014 Financial Report.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, at your last meeting, you asked that this item be held till this evening. Mr. Lyons is here to give you an update on where we ended 14, and perhaps, Mr. Lyons, at the end of the presentation, we can talk a little bit about where we see 15 and what we believe our next steps will be. So, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Marty Lyons, members of the council, Clerk Green, Manager Bob Quitz, Marty Lyons, Assistant City Manager. We have a brief report on where we ended up for 2014. The report will focus on the general operating fund and something we haven't done in years past when we've done this, and that's look at all funds. And we're bringing that up to show a little bit about where we're at with capital, that we have some capital projects that we'll be doing this year that didn't get done last year, so we're going to summarize that. So how did we end the year? General fund revenues came in above our projections, and if you may recall, we did raise projections when we did the 2014 budget. So our revenues are healthy. They're not knocking it out of the ballpark by any means, but they're stable. That was the term I would have used in 2013, 2014. They were growing slightly, and that was a great sign. Our expenses, unfortunately, also grew. We exceeded our budget by 0.1%. That's the first time in 5 years in the general fund that we went over budget. We've had staff that have been excellent in staying under budget throughout the whole year while still getting a lot of the projects and a lot of the programs done in the general fund. So the short of it is that the general fund, its reserves of $16.3 million is $72,000 less than they were at the close of 2013. So still very stable. Want to make sure everyone understands that we changed our fund balance policy for the general fund and raised that to a 2-month reserve. That $16.3 million is really about 18.5% because our budget is $90 million. So we're above our 2-month minimum reserve, but not by a lot. So it's something we're going to have to manage closely over the next year. Just a brief look at all of our different revenue sources, the main ones. Call your attention to property tax. A great year at 99.4%. That's the highest we've been in 5 years, at least, on collections compared to levy. So that was really important to see that the 0.06 or the 0.6 keeps shrinking. Those are the people that aren't paying taxes. So we have a lot of on-time property tax payers, and that is a very good sign for our economy. Sales tax, we raised that last year and still came in at 99%, so that was a good sign. And income tax, we also raised that substantially and came in at budget. We do have some issues that we want to look at, and those are in the areas of parking revenues. They're not showing up in the actual license permits and fees, but we are going to be looking at parking revenues overall over the coming year and what we're bringing in, the impact of our parking meters with, excuse me, with the credit card meters, and also the impact is we've been talking a lot about the Maple Garage, but our Sherman deck is full now, and that has not happened in the last few years. So we are seeing a bigger utilization of our downtown parking, just not all in one spot. Sherman's been getting the majority of it. So one other thing to point out are under license permits and fees, we raised the permit revenue substantially and still beat it. So that's a very good sign for our economy overall, that we're still seeing strong permits. That's not all Northwestern. That is a lot of building throughout the community. So very, very positive sign overall. On the expense side, as we noted, we had several departments that were over budget, just going down. Legislative is a small department. We had additional training going on, additional conference attendance, so a very small budget overall.
Excuse me, Marty. Alderman Braithwaite has a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you go back to your previous slide? I don't need it now, but is it possible to break down the license permits and fees by ward?
No.
No.
We could probably do some of the permits because we'll have those on a
More so the
geo
permits.
base. So we could bite off it, get
Permits.
it in chunks and do it over time for you. And we could also look at it for during our 2016 budget process to start bringing it forward that way. But in the short time frame, it'll be easier for us to do it prospectively. So.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons.
Going back, city administration, one of the cuts that we did in the past year's budget was to eliminate the manager's contingency, and then we had a need for the contingency. So we did have a little bit of expenditures out of the manager's office. And the law department that increase had to do with the fully staffing of the law department for the entire year. When you look at a balanced budget for 2015, we now have that completely covered, so that should not happen again next year or during the year that we're in right now. The police department, on the other hand, has been over budget for the last 3 years and has come in under budget this year, so that was a great sign. And finally, the fire and life safety department, which is now the fire department, was over budget mainly due to overtime. So it was not any additional costs associated with equipment or any of that nature. It was all had to do with overtime. Our parking, water, sewer, those three funds are all well under budget as far as the expenses go, and that all has to do with capital projects. We had several capital projects budgeted that did not start or did not finish in 2014, so that is the main reason for parking, water, and sewer to be under budget. Sewer has the smallest capital budget compared to their operating, so it came in at 90% or thereabouts. However, it was very important to see that sewer also had 97% on the revenue side. Water is down because they included bond issues and grants that they did not need, and so we did not issue the debt, and we also did not get the grant when our capital project did not start off. So that's the reason for water revenues being at 88%. The solid waste fund, again, has been doing a good job in a deficit situation. Revenues coming in at 100%, right on the nose, and expenses coming in at 91%. So we continue to slowly eat away at the deficit in the solid waste fund. So this was the slide I referenced before, looking at all funds, and you can see that the 2014 we had a revenue budget of $236 million and came in at $231 million. So very close overall, even counting for grants not received or the bond issues not that we did not expand the bond issue to meet some of our capital projects. I would call out that most of our TIFs, 3 of them, came back very strongly with their revenue, so that was really important to see. We still have some issues in a couple of our TIF districts, but that helped us out. And as I noted before, you had when you see the capital, the reason that's down by is only at 75%. The revenues that has to do with debt not being issued and also with grants not being received. So it's not that we have an ongoing revenue source that we're not picking up. So on the expense side, I think it tells a much different story. $256 million in expenses, but only $220 million actually spent. So that you can see that in the capital. That is actual expenses out the door. We still have a lot of encumbrances, meaning that a lot of our projects are done. They just hadn't been billed out by the time this report was prepared. So we will still have carryover and held over encumbered money that will come out of the capital funds for projects that are ongoing. The other major, as I said before, the enterprise funds at $61 million budgeted and $47.7 expended. Again, that is all capital related. Operating expenses have been close to budget or a little bit under. And then finally, the last one that is also a large one is the TIF funds, which had both economic development related projects where we will budget $1 million in case we have something that will happen in the Washington National TIF, have that ready for developer agreements, if anything comes along. Those weren't spent in 2014. Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And Madam Mayor, if I can just spend another additional moment talking about the current fiscal year. As you're all aware, the Illinois General Assembly, Governor Rauner, continued to grapple with deficits in the current year budget and for the state of Illinois as well as next year. We really don't know what's going to happen. Mayor Tisdale was in Springfield for a good part of last week, and you may want to comment, but
it's bad.
It's bad. What we are going to do is we're going to look at our first quarter revenues and expenses. First quarter will be ending next week. Our intention is to come back to you on Monday, April 27th, with a report on the first quarter, and then to make recommendations as to what we believe would be prudent moving forward. I think at that time we are going to need to recommend to you taking steps to be mindful of what may be coming for the rest of the fiscal year. I think it will be prudent for us at that point to offer recommendations to you for potential adjustments to the budget, or at least start a process for adjustments to the budget. And our intention is to do that again on Monday, April 27th.
Thank you.
That concludes the special order.
Alderman Rainey, could we have the consent agenda, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of March 9. Administration Public Works Committee met this evening and request approval of the payroll through March 8, $2,608,553.60. The Evanston bills through March 24, $3,430,137.21. We ask your approval for the 2015 agreement for new tire purchases with Wentworth Tire Services in the amount of $60,000. Approval is also requested for a vehicle purchase for youth engagement from Auto Barn, an Evanston business, in the amount of $15,779. We request your approval for the purchase of 12 vehicles for the police department, 2 vehicles for the fire department, and 2 mowers for public works in the total amount of $484,590.82. Approval is also requested for a 1-year extension for purchase of concrete from Ozinga Ready Mix Concrete in the amount of $50,000. We ask your approval for a contract with A-Lamp Concrete Contractors for the 2015 water main replacement and street resurfacing in the amount of $3,478,157.52. A change order request is being asked for Kenny Construction for the 2015 cured in place pipelining contract in the amount of $80,770. This will increase the contract amount to $347,810. It's for the rehab of the sewer beneath an alley that Northwestern University will be resurfacing this summer. We ask your approval for the 2015 special events calendar. Resolution 34R15, wait your approval for collective bargaining agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council. This involves the sergeants. It is effective January 1 through December 31, 2017, and will ratify tentative agreements executed throughout the negotiations process. Resolution 31R15, regarding the Southwest TIF district surplus. We're declaring and distributing a surplus of $905,308 from the Southwest TIF at the end of the fiscal year 2014, and this goes to all of the taxing bodies on your tax bill. Resolution 33R15 authorizes the manager to execute the Lincoln Street resurfacing project agreement with Northwestern in a not-to-exceed amount for Evanston of $651,500. Okay, ordinance, I'm leaving that on. Ordinance 24015, taxing medical marijuana sales from a cultivation center to a dispensary. The Illinois Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Pilot Program allows the City of Evanston to impose a tax on the cultivation center for the privilege of cultivating medical cannabis at a rate of 6% of the sales price per ounce for introduction. Also for introduction is authorizing the city manager to negotiate for the sale of city-owned property located at 1821 Ridge Avenue. We ask your approval for Ordinance 26015, proposing the establishment of special service area in the City of Evanston, providing for a public hearing and other related procedures for the business district area around Main Street, Chicago Avenue, and Dempster Street corridors. This will involve a public hearing on the proposed SSA for April 13. This is for introduction, and I also would include the suspension of the rules in the consent agenda. A report concerning firearm regulations in multifamily residence is asked to be accepted and placed on file. Off is Ordinance 6015, amending firearm regulations, and will be addressed by the committee chair. Ordinance 35015 is for action and amends Title 9, Chapter 5 regarding regulations of leaf blowers. Ordinance 31015 is also for action and amends the Hazardous Material Cost Recovery Program. For action also, Ordinance 32015, increasing the number of Class T liquor licenses for Carter Investments, doing business as Feast and Imbibe, 1601 Simpson, number 3. For action also is Ordinance 33015, increasing number of Class D licenses for Blaze, Illinois, Store 5, doing business as Blaze Pizza, 1737 Sherman Avenue. Planning and Development Committee met this evening and asked your approval to introduce a special use for a convenience store and accessory Type 2 restaurant, Ad Val's Suite at 900 Chicago Avenue. For introduction is a special use for a Type 2 restaurant, Epic Burgers, at 1622 Sherman Avenue. Ordinance 22015 is for introduction, has to do with zoning ordinance text amendment for fences and invisible fences. P41 is Ordinance 20015 and is for introduction and amends the text of the zoning ordinance by enacting a new section 61517, an overlay district at Dempster and Main Overlay District. For introduction also is 25015, amends the zoning map to place certain properties within the overlay district at Dempster and Main. P5, I believe, is off the consent agenda. I knew that. Housing and Community Development Act Committee requests your approval for the 2014 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, commonly known as the CAPER. It's for action, and explains how the City of Evanston used federal entitlement funds provided by HUD during the past year. Economic Development Committee requests your approval of the Economic Development Work Plan update, and also requests approval for the utilization of a standard economic development funding application. This is for action. Madam Mayor has not recommended any appointments, and therefore I move the consent agenda.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to pass the consent agenda. Seeing no one wanting further discussion, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Holmes?
Aye.
Alderman Tindem?
Aye.
Alderman Grover? Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Burris? Alderman Fisk? Alderman Braithwaite? 9-0.
9-0, the consent agenda is passed. Alderman Burris, would you take us through Administration and Public Works?
Yes, A13. The committee asks that your approval of Ordinance 6-0-15, amending firearm regulations in the City of Evanston. We have an amendment to this ordinance. We have
we recommend to increase the distance from 250 feet to 350 feet between firearm range lots and schools, child care facilities, and public parks, as well as R1, R2, and R3 districts.
Second.
Did I get that right, committee?
Second.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is there a reason that it can't be more than that, more than 350 feet? Okay, there is. Okay.
And we all turn to Grant.
Okay. So that's the most it can be.
Well, Madam Mayor, members of council, with respect to the suggested distance requirement, there was a lot of discussion at the committee level, and boiling down that discussion in my recommendations following that discussion. This ordinance seeks to walk a fine line, strike a careful balance between the careful issues attendant to regulations and special uses of all proposed uses, and certainly with the very intensive use that might be presented by a gun range, and the fundamental rights as enunciated in Diesel case and Heller and everything that's fully outlined in our memo. So the 350-foot distance requirement was the product, I think, of the very reasoned and thoughtful and deliberative consideration by the committee. I think that it's my recommendation, as well as the Corporation Council, that limit go forward. It balances the issues relative to regulating a fundamental right, and also restricting and reflecting the public policy concerns and sentiments of the council, in that ranges should be very strictly regulated and hard to locate in the city.
Well said. Thank you.
What he said.
All right. Seeing no lights on for further discussion, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Nguyen. Aye. Alderman Wilson. Aye. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Aye. Alderman Grover. Aye. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Aye. Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes. Alderman Burris, does that complete?
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Report. Alderman Fisk, you're the new Chair of Planning and Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. P5 is Ordinance 19015, the plan development at 1571 Maple Avenue. Plan Commission and staff recommend adoption for a special use of a plan development. The 12-story mixed-use development includes 101 residential units, 3,696 square feet of commercial space, and 12 parking spaces on site. Additionally, 101 parking spaces are proposed to be leased from city-owned Maple Avenue Public Parking Garage. The ordinance was introduced at the March 9th, 2015 City Council meeting. It's on for action. Is there a motion to approve?
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 19015. Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. And I think what I'm going to do is kick off the discussion with, perhaps it's a little bit of editorializing, but through the process, it's important to me, and I think it's important to my fellow council members, for people in the community to feel like they've had an opportunity to be carefully heard. And I think there have been occasions throughout this process where a number of people have felt like that they couldn't comfortably express their opinions, and I find that to be disappointing. So, you know, whether that's on an online blog or whether that's at a committee meeting, there have been a number of occasions where that opinion's been expressed, that people didn't feel comfortable. So I'm disappointed that has been part of the process, and that's been part of the experience for people who have had concerns. I think that regardless of what somebody's opinion is, it shouldn't be marginalized or mocked, or people shouldn't feel bullied about their opinions. An opinion about anything from someone's view to a parking concern, to anything else that is of relevance in this particular context, it's relevant to that person, and it does have value. And again, this isn't addressed to the council and to my colleagues here, but just more along the lines of something that I think we need to be really focused on as a process going forward, so people don't have that perception. This is a very, very difficult property. It's strangely shaped. It's inconveniently situated. It is next to two completely different, or I should say sandwiched between two completely different types of properties. I've heard from the properties to the north who have indicated support of the project, and obviously I've heard from people who live to the south who are very disappointed with the project. There are a lot of complexities. I think that, I know, when I joined the council, this is on the radar. You know, I could see that the Elmwood building going up. It was a large building and there's an empty lot to the north, and it caused me concern for a number of years, just wondering what was going to happen there. And I knew that whatever it was, that was going to be causing concern in the neighborhood. So when different people have made, you know, suggestions, rumors, whatever it is, some things sounded horrifying, some things sounded okay, and this particular project was floated, and I know that the developer had worked with the staff for a period of time. My directive to him was that he needed to reach out to the community, talk to them, and that's who mattered. You know, my opinion doesn't matter as much as the people in the neighborhood. They're the ones who are going to be living with the direct impacts. So that was my priority, is to have that interaction with the community. And this is what was this is essentially what was ultimately devised. So is it perfect? It's far from perfect. I started out with very, very grave reservations about the parking circumstances. My natural inclination, I think, is what most people's natural inclination is, and that is developments have to have parking. You know, you need a parking deck. That's just kind of what we have to have. It's taken a lot of reconsideration on my part, and consideration of the neighbors to the south, people in the neighborhood, to kind of, I'm not going to say I embrace the idea, but I guess at least understand the idea that there are people who are interested in having an apartment who don't have cars, and they don't want to pay more rent to have an apartment with the parking as an amenity. The idea of putting a parking deck on this property would certainly adversely affect the views. If you put a parking deck on the lot and you add a tower on top of that, it's going to increase the scale and the scope of the project. But those are some of the things that have been weighing on my mind, and I'm interested to hear what my fellow council members think and would like to inquire about of the developer.
Thank you. Alderman Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Wilson, for making those comments before, because I think that we receive all kinds of emails, and when you have a large project like this and there's a lot of feelings about it, you get tons of emails. Sometimes you're able to answer them all, sometimes you're not able to answer them all, and just because you don't answer the email, all of the emails, doesn't mean that you're not reading them and listening. And I did send a couple of emails back to say to people that I do my very best to read everything and try to make the best decision for the city of Evanston. I did receive lots of emails in this last week, and I tried to read them very carefully. Two things jumped out at me. One was about handicap parking, and someone sent an email that said, by state law, we should have 5 handicap spaces there. And I went back very carefully and looked at everything from the Plan Commission, and I was looking at the proposal, and I finally called Director Munzer to ask and found out that handicap spaces are determined by the number of parking spaces you have on site. So because of that, there's only 1 required, although they did put 2 there. So they're above the requirement. So that answered that question for me. The other question, that piece that jumped out at me, of course, as always, is affordable housing. And I realize that the developer has generously offered to give $120,000 as a one-time donation to the housing fund, but I'd much rather see a couple of units of affordable housing. Now, granted, I know you're talking about people who won't have cars, but you also there young people especially, who may be just starting out with a new job, who would like to jump on the train and ride downtown and not have a car, but can't afford downtown. And I'm very disturbed when we are not having affordable units in our downtown area for our lower income and middle income folk. And so I would hope that that would be taken into consideration. I have someone asked me tonight, had I talked to the developers? No, I don't usually do that. As I told some of the citizens, I try to stay in my own lane, in my own ward on a lot of the projects until it comes before the council. So no, I did not talk to the developer about it. I did mention it to Alderman Wilson this afternoon. But I would, that is one of the things that I would like to see changed, is to have at least minimum two units of affordable housing in the building.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to address the issue of transit-oriented development, because I think a lot of what I've heard makes transit-oriented development sound like a new concept that we should be embracing. But the fact is that the city has embraced transit-oriented development for at least 80, if not 90 to 100 years. If you look at how development along the rail line, especially the L, has worked, and you look at South Boulevard, and you look at Main Street, and Dempster, and Noyes, and Foster, and Central, you'll see buildings from the 1920s, the 19-teens, all clustered around those sites. That's all transit-oriented development. We've been doing a great job with that for longer than any of us probably have been alive. So there's nothing new about that concept. What is new is whether or not that means that we should be allowing buildings in Evanston that don't have parking or don't have convenient parking. And that's the problem that I'm having with this building, is that you're asking for basically the majority of the parking spaces associated with the building to be located about almost half a mile away. I don't think that's reasonable. And I don't think everyone's going to jump on the L and go downtown to their jobs. I think there are a lot of jobs all over the place where people are not going to be taking transportation. They are going to be driving. Even if you're going downtown, you're going to be parking your car somewhere. And young people, who will probably be the majority of the tenants of this building, do like to have cars. Now, while it's a goal for us to have zip cars and encourage people to bike and walk and take public transportation, the fact is that in Chicago, as well as in Evanston, you see a very different car usage on weekends. So you see people maybe who are working downtown who then use their car on the weekends. So you've got the cars there, and you're always going to have cars there. I think someone testified, maybe it was Mr. Bova or someone testified, as to the increase in the number of cars that are in Evanston. It's wishful thinking. I agree with the wishful thinking. It would be nice if none of us had to have cars, but that is not what we're seeing. And what we are seeing from this 80 years of experience is that we're seeing congestion in neighborhoods. I live on Sherman Avenue, just west of the university. You're not allowed to have a car or get a parking sticker if you live east of, maybe it's Green Bay Road now, but it certainly is Ridge. The parking along Hinman, along Judson, along Sherman, all next to downtown are the reasons that we have so many restricted parking areas to protect our residents, so our residents are going to be able to park somewhere close to their neighborhood. And that's been in existence even with developments that have required parking built in on site to the developments. So I'm struggling with this. I've talked to Don Wilson about it. I still can't get over it. It is, again, I can see the spillover effect that we're going to see is going to go south into the residential neighborhood, causing consternation to those residents. I just don't see a way around this. I would feel much better about this development if it had more parking on site. And then the last thing I wanted to say was that I do have some expertise in real estate and property values, and I do think that there is going to be a negative impact on the property values of the building next door. I just don't think anyone who has their view taken away is going to command the same sales price as they would if that view still weren't in existence. So I'm sympathetic, but my main concern is about the parking.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've come around and gotten comfortable with the idea of parking. We have one development on Central Street, one on Green Bay Road that we approved as transit-oriented development, and that's in a neighborhood business district. So that's not in our more dense downtown neighborhood where even less of a parking ratio I think would be appropriate. So I've come around and gotten comfortable with the idea of the parking capacity for this building. My concern, though, is the affordable housing, and I think this is an opportunity for us to not just increase the funds in our affordable housing fund, but actually create affordable housing units. And I think this is where I draw the line on this one, is if we can find room in this building to create 2 to 5 affordable housing units that stay perpetually affordable for, as Alderman Holmes said, for the families and the young adults who are wanting to and should be able to live in our downtown and should be able to do it in a way that doesn't require them to have a car to get to work and to get around. So that's really my big issue on this one is can we find a way to create affordable housing units in this building? And I don't know if it's additional units in addition to the $120,000 pay into our affordable housing fund or instead of. I'm looking for guidance on this. But the rest of it, and then my only comment on the renderings that we've seen is on page 421 of our packet. It's a picture of what is called a north elevation. It's really a northwest elevation, and I'd love to see the elevation that is truly north because Davis Street goes directly east-west. And if you look at that picture, the buildings in the front are pictured at an angle, which tells us that it's a northwest elevation, not a true north elevation, which is what I'd like to see. Because I think then we'd have a more realistic picture of what the buildings look like next to each other from the north. Can you see what I'm talking about? That the buildings on Davis Street there are angled, so we're really looking at it from a northwest, which minimizes the size of the proposal, but I'd like to see it from a true north elevation.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Initially, I've heard from people about this building as well, and initially I was very concerned about the distance that people would have to walk to the Maple Avenue garage because we aren't Santa Monica. So, but I also recognize that in all of my time here on the council that there are a number of buildings that have been built just in the time I've been on the council that already have aspects of them that are going to become obsolete. We have buildings that have drive-throughs for banks, and during the life of that building, those big open garages for a drive-through for a bank are eventually going to be obsolete and not used, given what we're all doing in our banking these days. So. And for instance, on Main and Chicago, there will be a development there. It's going to start in April, and we are not requiring the developer there to put in all of the required zoning under our zoning ordinance. We are requiring about 72%. So I understand that we don't want to have a developer build infrastructure that 30 years from now or even 15 years from now is not necessary. So I do appreciate the transit-oriented development aspect of this. The developer only needs to find 101 people who don't own a car or want to live in this situation. And people choose where they live according to what's convenient for them. In the Third Ward, we have many, many, many vintage buildings that don't have garages. So people, and I'm amazed at them, they have memorized all of the parking requirements in our neighborhood, and they move their car all the time, all the time. But that's something they've all accepted when they wanted to live in a vintage building on a particular street. But I do think that Ms. Fagan raised a really important point about how much the developer is actually saving by not having to build a parking garage. By the last number that I heard, building a parking garage, above ground parking, is about $30,000 to $35,000 a space. So if the developer had to put parking on this site, I think my math might be a little off. I think it would be about over $3 million in construction costs. So when she suggested, I don't necessarily agree with her on this, but when she suggested adding a zero to the $120,000 to the Affordable Housing Fund, I mean, I understand what her reasoning was on that. So the developer is obviously going to be making money here, and we want them to have a successful building. But I do think that this is an extraordinary request that they're making. We haven't ever gone out on this far on a limb before. So I would like to see something more from the developer. I think there are many terrific aspects of this building, the LEED silver, the green roofs, a number of the other benefits that have been offered. But I do think that it is very legitimate to recognize that we are also saving them an enormous amount of money because they don't have to put in an expensive parking garage. So I'd like to hear more about what else they can do.
Thank you. Alderman Tendam.
Thank you. I've been struggling as well with the two issues that seem to predominate this discussion tonight. With regard to the parking, I still have not warmed up to the concept of parking that far away from home. I think that, especially on weekends, coming and going, and people who work at home or people who are active and do use their cars will be searching and crawling the neighborhood, especially the area to the south, to do that. I would like to see, and wonder if it had been looked at, off-street parking in another location closer than the Maple Garage, something that was actually realistic in terms of people using. It seems to me like even the Central Street development, which is having some problems, but it is transit-oriented, even they had a 1-to-1 ratio, I believe. So that, and like I said, we are experiencing problems on Central Street since that has opened. But so I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. I would like to think that every idea has been discussed and more or less rejected for feasibility, but I think it's still unreasonable to expect people to use the garage. Secondly, I would like to advocate for actual units in the apartment, in the building for affordable housing. We do get a lot of funding, but having having affordable housing that is marginalized around corridors that we don't seem to think is as valuable or as central defeats the whole affordable housing. People who are in need of affordable housing also need to be transit oriented, also are more likely not to have a car, not to be able to use it to park downtown. So I think it's very, very important that location of this affordable housing be more realistic and reasonable. So that's where I'm at. I guess I'm not really at a decision, but those are my concerns.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Concerning bonuses for parking at Main and Chicago and on Central Street, there is no accessory parking around there. In this case, we have a huge parking garage that was built, as I said at our last meeting, to take parking from those buildings back in the day that were not required to provide parking on site. So this is a perfect use for this location. And remember, people who have a bunch of cars aren't going to rent from this guy. Just not going to happen. Why would you rent from somebody that has no on-site parking if that's what you want? Because if that's what you want, that's a key requirement in your housing search. I wasn't giving much thought to the affordable housing issue, but I think we should eliminate the is it Alderman Holmes, 160? No, 120. 120. Take that off the table, give it back to the developer, and require 5 units to comply with the 30% of income for whoever the tenant is that's approved. I'm not saying it has to take Section 8 vouchers, but to they're going to have a very professional management company. They can set aside 5 units. I don't think they should have to build another unit, just the units that they're going to build, and set 5 units aside. I don't even care what the mix is, if they're all for senior citizens or, family, whatever. And just simply require that they produce documentation that those units are going to be affordable, and I'm only going to say for 7 years. Because at 7 years, things start to happen and people move, and there might be a whole different world in 7 years. So 7 to 10 years required, not in perpetuity. We got stuck with in perpetuity with Northwestern. I don't think we want it here. So given a time frame of 10 years, they'll have to administer 5 units of affordable housing within the building. That's an amendment.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk?
Could Alderman Braithwaite go first? I don't think he's
Yes, he could.
Yeah. It's just a couple of quick comments, and then I want to go back to Alderman Rainey's motion. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, Alderman Wilson, just quickly, thank you very much for your statements. I agree. I've also received a lot of emails, so I definitely want to get that out. Thank you all who've reached out to me, and we try our best to get back to you. Alderman Holmes, thank you very much for bringing up the issue of affordable housing. So I just want to take a quick moment and say to staff, I think these are the same developers that are going to be coming to the second ward. So it is my ward, so I will be paying very close attention to this issue. And hopefully you've now heard from City Council that this is a very important issue for us as well. Alderman Nguyen, you did some important math that made me think about just how we approach this. And I'm coming back now to Alderman Rainey's amendment. And so I would like to maybe bump up those numbers to 10% affordable housing, and you didn't specify the units. And so I'm more interested in the multifamily aspect, and so I don't know how they do this, but now would be a good time maybe to hear from the developers. We've been talking for 30 minutes now, and I just want to know from you all if you're hearing what we are saying, and if there's room, just given the math that Alderman Nguyen just so well laid out, can you take a stab at making this work? I don't need a commitment, just an understanding that you've heard now from all of us, and are you willing to make this work?
Thank you, John McLendon, and I appreciate your time and consideration this evening. And let me address maybe just a couple of the economic issues in particular that you've raised tonight. Unfortunately, it would have been helpful, if we had these issues on the table quite some time ago as opposed to at the 11th hour. It makes it quite difficult. But let me explain maybe 2 pieces of the economics from a developer standpoint. And obviously, the deal has to work for everybody or it doesn't happen. It has to work for the community. It has to work for ourselves also. And it has to work really for the city at large. With respect to the parking issue, the one thing which I'd like that's been forgotten in the math is this. If I were to build the parking spaces, and you're probably right, that in a typical parking space, it probably costs about $30,000 in hard costs, give or take, on a normal site. This site can't really handle it. And if I had a drawing of the site, I could show you, but it's L-shaped, and just because you have circulation and how a car has to circulate, and you have a core of a building that has elevators and stairwells and everything else, it's very, very inefficient, and it just doesn't work to have above-grade parking that circulates around this L-shaped site with a big core in the middle. So it just doesn't work on this site. It's very difficult in terms of its shape. But let's say for the moment that you're correct, and that number on a normal site would cost $30,000 to build a space. And obviously the implication is we're saving a lot of money. Well, the fact of the matter is we're also not achieving the income. If I had those spaces on site, let's say it was $150 a space, which I would charge, 12 times that on a monthly basis, 18,000 divided by a cap rate, which I would sell this thing at, of let's say 6%. That's, oh my God, that's $30,000. So yeah, it does. I have the cost that you're not imposing upon me, but I also don't have the revenue. If I had those spaces and I did build them on site, it would pay for itself. Okay, so from a financial model, I'm okay. If I could build them on site, I would build them on site. I can't do it. This site doesn't allow us to do so. So the idea of putting them down the street makes a lot of sense for the city because they have excess capacity. For us, because I'm convinced that there is not going to be a problem with people who do use a car occasionally using that lot. I've walked it myself, and I forget the exact time. I think it was several minutes. I probably walk faster than most people, but it was not at all uncomfortable. I wish I had my notes with me right now, but it's a very short walk. Now, if I was a person that had to use a car every single day, and I used it a lot, and was a heavy user of a car, you know what? I'm not going to live here. That's as simple as it is. And that was stated by Alderman Rainey the other night. The risk in this project of the parking not being successful is my risk. And it's not really the neighborhoods because they can't park on those streets at night anyway. And anybody who lives here is making a choice. And you have choices that everybody can make. The project downtown was referred to before, which I'm very familiar with. 1611 West Division, they have 100 spaces. I've talked to the manager, I've talked to the developer, and said, you know, when you guys, this is unique, you know, when you guys had people come here, what happened? What did they say? I mean, if someone had a car, they said if they had a car and they really needed it, they just walked out and they rented somewhere else. But the fact of the matter is we rented up 100, and they had 99 units there. We rented up 99 units in 6 months. There's enough people. We don't have to get everybody. Not everybody doesn't want to use a car. Not everybody's interested in transit-oriented development, but there's enough people who are that it's filled up our building. And I'm convinced there's enough people in Evanston. We have 100 units that this project will be successful. One other economic issue, and it's affordable housing. And I've been doing affordable housing in a number of communities, in Chicago in particular, for many, many years. And the biggest issue which I have, in particular with some of the comments tonight, not only is it at the end of the day, pretty late in the game to be throwing this upon it, throwing this issue out there, is the cost. And let me explain the cost to you again here from our perspective. And the cost when you have an affordable housing unit, I actually heard a number of 30% affordable income. I'm going to tell you it's 60% in Chicago, as I just did the math today on another project. At 60%, we're leasing a unit out at about $1.10 a square foot. All in, my expenses are about that. Okay, meaning my operating expenses and real estate taxes. So on an affordable unit in Chicago, and it's not going to be any different here because your expenses, operating expenses and taxes are not going to be that different. My operating expenses, okay, will basically be covered by the rent. That's in Chicago. That's at a 60% number. If someone did say 30%, maybe I misunderstood. 30% number, it wouldn't even cover it. So that really means that I'm getting zero revenue on that unit. Now, what did that unit cost me to build? Anybody want to guess? It's about $250,000. Okay? So what did it cost me? Again, I don't have any revenue. The value is zero. The cost is $250,000. It cost me $250,000. If it's, 3 units, then it's 750. If it's 5 units, it's $1,250,000. That's a big number on a project like this. It's a huge number. It's quite frankly the difference in being able to do the deal and not do the deal. It's that significant. Now, I have no problem at all of doing affordable housing. Like in Chicago, for example, when we do affordable housing, at least until a recent change, there's the most important issue to me is everybody plays by the same rules. I've got a competitor down the street. I've got to put in 10% at that $100,000 number I want to buy out. That's $10,000 a unit. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's cost structure is the same. Okay, it's not as if I'm competing against, as you know, there's several projects which have just been built and we're going to be, a year from now leasing against. Their cost structure is completely different. So the issue to me is, if you set some rules and you want to do something ordinance-wise for the entire city, that's fine. I'll play by those rules. I'll know what those rules are, and before I even put the property under contract, I can factor that into my analysis. But at the 11th hour, it's very, very difficult to do that, especially when some of our competitors who are right down the street, who just built buildings, who I am going to be competing against, they don't have that in their cost structure. You can't have every deal comes up and this project's doing 5 and this one's doing 10, this one's doing 2. You make a contribution, you put units on site, you're at 30% affordable, you're at 60% affordable. Make a rule, make it consistent, everybody knows what it is, and then we can make adjustments and play by the same rules. But don't force something on me that my competitors don't have to do when I have to go out and lease, my product against their product. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Thank you. All right, Alderman Nguyen has a question.
Can I just ask?
I know. Hold on. Alderman Nguyen, can you ask your question if it's quick?
Several of us have the question here. What do you project the rents to be?
My best guess right now is it'll be about the range quite dramatically. If you look at it on a per unit basis, probably about $1,400 on the low end, and maybe $3,500 on the high end. That's on a per unit basis. And I base that upon, I'd say, our prime competition being new buildings that have a similar amenity package, being the new Fifield building on Emerson, and then the 1717 building are 2 buildings in our comp set, and they are achieving similar type of numbers. Yes, and they charge extra for parking.
Okay, Alderman Fisk.
Yeah, thanks. And I mean, and following up on that, so $1,400 for your studio unit, what, 1 bedroom, what would that be? 2 bedrooms, and the 3 bedrooms would be the $3,500?
Yeah, again, there's different size of units and there's different, views and everything else. But I'd say maybe an average 1 bedroom is probably going to be, $1,900, give or take.
And 2 bedroom?
A 2 bedroom unit, $2,600. I'm giving you kind of quick numbers here.
That's fine.
I haven't memorized all the numbers. I haven't looked at the schedule in a long time. And again, even within 1 bedrooms, there may be 1 bedrooms that are, 650 square feet. There's 1 bedrooms that are 800 square feet. So they're going to vary too.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then just really quickly, Madam Mayor, I do agree with what everyone has said about the affordable housing units. I really think they need to be actual units and not just a payment to the Affordable Housing Fund. That seems to me just to be the easy way out to make a payment to the fund, and I really would like to see those units downtown for families. 2 other just brief things. I have asked city staff over probably the past year for information regarding parking figures for the rental buildings downtown. And I realize that some of these are new, but I would really like to get an idea of how many cars are in these buildings once the buildings are up and running. So if we can get that information, I think it will be very helpful to the council going forward. Obviously not right now, but going forward it's going to be very useful. I do think that the development of this whole area, I don't remember who brought that up earlier. It was at a previous meeting. It may even have been at the Plan Commission, talking about what actually is going to be happening on this block and what are the future development needs or interests going to be on the entire block going over to Grove Street. And I think that may warrant looking at this area for a low parking deck, some kind of public parking over there that would not only encourage appropriate development, but also provide parking that would relieve the residential neighborhood, the single-family residential neighborhood from spillover parking. And that's it.
Thank you, Alderman Grover, and then Alderman Rainey and Alderman Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The issue that we've run into on Central Street at Central Station Apartments is not necessarily the spillover into the neighborhood, but rather the communication between the developer and the building management in failing to tell new residents that anyone with this address is not eligible for a residential parking permit, so you cannot park on the street. And once we clarified that the building was indeed not in a residential parking district, the building was not issuing any more mistaken residential parking permits for the new building. So we are adjusting parking regulations, not because of the residents in the building, but rather because of the additional traffic and parking created by the businesses and the restaurants that are opening up, and the Art Center, I'm sure. The affordable housing issue, this project comes to us with unanimous approval by the Plan Commission, and affordable housing is not one of the Plan Commission's standards for review, but the issue was discussed in the context of public benefits for the building, and the developer was prepared to acknowledge the affordable housing issue in Evanston and make a payment of $120,000. So I don't think it's a new issue, but I think we're just kind of shifting the issue to one of payments to units, and maybe there's a way of finding an equivalence between those two. But again, it's an important issue for me that in this critical location in downtown that we start to create some affordable housing units. And I think he's right. We need to extend our affordable housing ordinance from simple condominium products to rental products, if we can do that. But in this one, I think if we've already got affordable housing on the radar screen in a $120,000 way, I think we can turn it into units in the building.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Well, I was going to, I agree units are important. But I don't want to lose this project, and we probably wouldn't. But I was wondering if Alderman Holmes and Alderman Grover, how would you feel about making a compromise request of $100,000 a year for 10 years, and that money, as I believe all the money in our affordable housing fund should be used to subsidize units in areas that are pretty homogeneous. And I have noticed that over time, we are not using that money to subsidize units or to provide any housing. What we're using it for is for workshops and for this person and that person to counsel. And I think the time has come when we need to apply those dollars to actual housing, which we have not yet done. And so I think if we had a housing fund where we knew we would get $100,000 infused every year, hopefully there would be some investment, et cetera, and we could use that money to help assist families to go into this building. That's what I'm
Thank you.
And I'm wondering what the developer would think about that. That's why I had my light
Okay.
on, so we could ask the
Well, let's
developer a
ask.
question. And I know it's sort of like the last minute, but this has been going on for a long time, so. And you had to have known, given the controversy in the community, that issues were going to come up that you might not have dealt with yet.
And Alderman, if I could just insert, I don't think anyone made any guarantees that we were going to pass this thing without parking. So I would hope
No
that
guarantees about anything.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
this could
So
go
I don't
down
buy the
in
last
flames
minute-
tonight. It
Yeah.
could go down in flames tonight.
Thank you.
But I think responsible aldermen are going to
That's-
try and
Yep.
save this in
I
one
agree.
form or another.
Thank you.
I mean, you can't really put people through a year-long plus process and then dump them at the last second. I mean, we've got to make this a better project. That's what I'm saying. Sir, sorry.
But a better project for all the citizens of Evanston.
Yeah.
We agree. When we started this process.
Could you introduce
Oh,
yourself?
I'm sorry. My name is Michael McLean. I am a partner with the developer. I'm also a resident of Evanston. Thank you again for having us this evening and hearing this unique and special case. We did not ignore the issue of affordable housing when we first sat with staff and with our planners to look at this site. What we tried to do was come up with a creative solution, along with a number of other creative solutions, for a very difficult, very large site with the densest zoning allowable in downtown Evanston, which is the D3. What we tried to do was to create multiple levels of sustainability with this project that would address all of the goals that so many in Evanston have already put forward, whether it's LEED or bicycles or transportation or car shares or small units or downtown living and shopping local. So when we tried to put together the project for this site and we looked at a number of different uses, we felt that by providing a very small unit, single person household that would live in a smaller space and not use a car, that we would be able to attract people at the median household income level of Evanston without overburdening their income levels with excessive rent in excess of 35% of their income, and eliminate the need for a car, which would free up an estimated $10,000 a year in expenses to an average citizen who owns a car in an urban environment. That's 20% of their income if we put it against the $50,000 or $47,000 median household income in Evanston. So we did not ignore an affordable issue. We just chose to look at affordability of our city by providing an alternate means of living, which would allow people to spend less on a car and thus live more locally. So I assure you that in other projects that we've looked at in Evanston, we look at them very differently. We also look at them with foreknowledge of some of the proposals that are being discussed as far as inclusive and affordable housing within Evanston, and particularly the rental properties which are being proposed around town.
Does that answer? All right. No, it's the alderman now. Next is Alderman Wilson.
Add on that.
I think Alderman Rainey had a question that she was posing before, and we didn't answer that, so let me do that. If I get the question correctly, would we consider providing $100,000 a year over 5 years to, if you will, jumpstart? Pardon?
I said 10.
10 years.
You probably won't own it in 10 years, so say yes.
It doesn't matter.
We'll
because
transfer it to the next guy.
it impacts the value of your property if you're doing it. So, I mean, it's irrelevant
But
whether I
it's
own
a
it or I
serious
don't own it.
question. It's not.
Pardon?
It's a serious, not a frivolous question. It's
I realize it's a very serious question. it's not easy to negotiate in public of this sort. So,
But here we are.
we could do $500,000 however you want it. Okay, I can't do $1 million. Okay, and I do like the idea, and it is very helpful, quite frankly, to do it over a period of time as opposed to writing a lump sum check when I pull my permit. So that is beneficial. So if we can spread a $500,000 over time, I think that's something which we could do.
Over 5 years.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson, are you done?
Not exactly, but we're, well, we've gotten onto a different point, but the point I was going to talk about was just the idea of focusing design efforts. And there was an article in the Tribune that I think most of the council members, if not everybody, it was shared with them. But the point of that was that, and Alderman Fisk, you're right. At some point in time, buildings were really focused on the person as far as how it was designed and how it was laid out. And somewhere along the line, as the automobile became more popular, we've really changed the focus of our buildings and our development to focus on the automobile. You know, you look at the building and it's a parking deck. That's the thing that's on the street. And that's really kind of become the guiding principle in both the design and the developments. And to your point, Alderman Willen, I agree. I think it's we're looking at them finding 100 or so, a little over 100 people who want to live this way. But back to the point on the affordable housing question, I feel like I would like to explore that a little bit more on what maybe the possible parameters or options might be. Your point about the fairness is well taken. I don't recall us requiring any affordable housing requirements of rental properties. Has that ever been done?
No, but Carroll Properties
That's not true because they paid, but they paid, and because he referred to that, and I wanted to bring that up.
Well, and that's good. And I'm not saying they should be excused
and I
from it.
opposed it. And I would prefer the units then, and I will always prefer units.
Sure.
So anybody that hears me know that I will always prefer units.
And I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, but and if I can just interject, Bob King's the E2 project. They paid $250 to the Affordable Housing Fund up front, and then we also had affordable housing units in the Sienna project.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's important.
So there is
get that out there, and as far as what other people have done, because that it reflects a fairness component.
Weren't those purchased units in Sienna?
They were purchased right.
Yes, well, Sienna's a condo building.
That went with the,
well, whatever. The point being that we are doing that, here and there. So, question for the developer: if we worked on this affordable housing question over the next week or so, would timing work for you to come back at the next meeting to address that in some fashion?
We would definitely like to work on it. I will point out that the Carroll Properties project, we were aware that they did make a contribution of $250,000. That they do have 350 units to our 101. We thought that 120,000 based on size was reasonable. As you heard my partner John McClendon state that we are willing to discuss that going up substantially. If there was a way to lessen the immediate burden of that, that would be helpful.
Okay, timing-wise, coming back at the next meeting, would that work out for you guys?
Yes.
Would that be agreeable to my colleagues to have that conversation?
Would you like
a
motion to hold that?
Well, I'd like to see if anybody else had anything further. Because if there are things that we need to cover besides that, then I'd like to do it all, now.
Do it all now.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak to it then.
Have brilliant ideas at the next meeting that they never heard of.
Right, exactly.
I promise not to have a brilliant idea at the next meeting. I might have an idea, but I agree with. I did not think that this project had a significant public benefit. I think the affordable housing is a terrific public benefit. I agree with the developer and would ask the city manager. I think we need an ordinance that covers affordable housing in rental units, and I would be asking staff to please get to work on that. While I am very happy with the affordable housing discussion and think that does cover public benefit, I'm still concerned about the neighbors and their views and how the project impacts the neighborhood, and I will be concerned about that at the next meeting as I am at this one. Next is either Alderman Grover or Alderman Braithwaite. I've lost the...
I'm just going to make a motion to hold and then give the developers an opportunity to speak with our staff and then come back to City Council when we have something that works.
Well, I think,
so.
why don't we let everybody ask their questions?
I didn't.
I'm sorry, Alderman Braithwaite.
I'll hold that.
Alderman Grover, Alderman Rainey, and Alderman Holmes.
So hold the hold?
I'm going to hold the hold.
So if we're going to be looking at really what amounts to just a larger pay into the Affordable Housing Fund to support or subsidize affordable housing units in this building or any other unit, I'd like more information about how we as a city are going to administer a housing subsidy program.
Housing what?
Subsidy program.
Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey.
It seems to me that if there's going to be a discussion with our staff isn't where the action is at the moment. It's really with the opinions of the council, and I'm not sure. I mean, how are we going to know that I'm just not comfortable that we're sending them to staff to figure this out, because they've been with staff and it wasn't figured out. So,
well, it wasn't an issue with the staff, evidently.
well, that's what I'm saying. So how, I mean, my concept is that we get as much money as we can in cash. Because I mean, if you understand development, you understand that they can't set aside, they can't take 10 units and not charge any, based on their lender, et cetera, et cetera. And I assume they have financing.
And I agree with you, Alderman Rainey, and I didn't ask for 10 units. I'm going to say.
I'm not finished. I want us to make certain, because you know where affordable units end up. They end up in the 9th Ward, they end up in the 8th Ward, the 2nd Ward, the 5th Ward. And there need to be some downtown where people can get on a train. I mean, you can't get on a train.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's what I said.
You can't get on a train from Dodge and Mulford because the yellow line doesn't stop.
And that's why I'm interested in units, not dollars.
And so it's important that we get, but you need dollars to get the units. And so my alternate suggestion, because I feel the pain when you take units out of the market, that the program we need is a program that provides subsidies from our affordable housing fund. It's not rocket science. It can be done. You have the developer approve the tenant, they vet the tenant, and then send them to us to determine whether they're qualified for a subsidy or not. That's it. Simple. We have a housing staff. We have Sarah Flax overseeing several people in the house. We have Mark Munzer overseeing people in the housing staff. And I think we can do it. I think Mary Ellen Poole could do this program. Absolutely, no problem. She's very smart.
Alderman Holmes.
I'll pass.
All right. Alderman Braithwaite. Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Wilson.
And I just want to make sure the developer is clear on what we're expecting. We expect you to come back with the best you can do. And perhaps if you have some options or alternates along the lines of what Alderman Rainey was describing. Okay.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
So I guess then, Madam Mayor, as a matter of procedure, do we need to hold this item or what? Yes. Okay.
The city manager has one question.
Before our motion for hold, and I think that would be the appropriate motion, is there any other issue that's outstanding? If we come back with a a solution or a series of issues for you to consider on the affordable housing. Is there any other issue with this project we should work on?
Alderman Nguyen.
I'd like to get some data about 1717 Ridge and the other properties that were mentioned in the downtown area. I just looked at the 1717 Ridge website, and a 3-bedroom unit is between $3,400 and $3,800. So I'd like to understand how the economics line up between the various buildings. I couldn't find how much they charge for parking. So
Pro forma, so we know how many 3-bedrooms there might be only 3 3-bedrooms.
Well, I just like, but we're looking at rents, Alderman Rainey. So
But from their building.
from their building, but other buildings. I mean, I know what the other buildings are in my ward. So I'd like, but the 1717 Ridge is very much a direct competitor. So I'd like to understand that, And then what is the charge for parking in those places?
So, and more specifically to Alderman Nguyen's point, so I wish maybe we had Dennis Marino around for that institutional memory. There's a document that I have in my email that's attached to that property. The question is, what happened to the affordable units after the property was sold? So that's my biggest question. So I can find that information. But that's a question that I would like to add. So I know that they were affordable use as part of that project. There's no question about that. But where are they now, I think, is the bigger question.
They're owned now, if I remember.
Right, so they're gone.
Wasn't it
That's the point.
It was natural. Alderman Breathwaite, it was natural ties. Finally, the name came to my head. I've been trying to think of it in terms of because when it first started, I was new on the council, but that it was natural ties, and if I remember correctly, it was 5 units. If I remember correctly.
Center for Independent
Futures. Independent Futures.
Yeah.
Center for Independent. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So
When the published parking rates for E2 are $145 for a non-reserved space and $195 a month for a reserved space.
Okay, but I'm also interested in some of the other properties, like 1717
I
Ridge.
believe Amley and 1717
We can come
are
back.
slightly
Right.
less than
Yeah, I'd like to get the staff to come back.
All right. We have
Madam
Alderman
Mayor?
Holmes and Alderman Fisk.
Can I just add, Wally was asking what information staff.
Go right ahead.
And I'd like that information about cars in downtown buildings, percentage of cars.
Thank you. Alderman
I do have.
Alderman Holmes.
I do have my light on this time, Mayor.
Okay.
Sorry. We talked about issues. I just want to be real clear. This is the first time that we really discuss this, and so it may appear to the developer that it's new stuff, but you get new stuff all the time. And as I said, this past week we have been inundated with information from residents, and we're trying to I think respond to some of that as well. So I'm a little bit taken back by saying that this is a 0 hour. I mean, the 0 hour is not until we get ready to vote on it, and who knows when that will be. But we have to discuss it. We have to discuss it in public. I tried to be very clear. I had 2 issues. There were a lot of issues for me, but I came to grip with the rest of them except for the handicap parking and the affordable housing. So I put those on the table, and I hope everyone else will do the same so that we don't have to come back and repeat that. So I think we're being as clear as we possibly can. So
I'm still concerned about the neighbors' views as well. Alderman Rainey. And then Alderman Braithwaite, I think you're still on.
If
You
I
need
can
a
just
second
ask,
for your hold.
Madam Mayor, so then is a direction to staff as well to look at the overall project as far as the views issue as well, and to try to come back?
Good from me.
I don't
but-
think I think we've been told about the views. Madam Mayor, is it my turn?
It better be, since you're talking. Yes, Alderman.
I'm a little concerned about some of the inquiries. For example, Alderman Fisk, how are we going to find out how many cars everybody has in the rental buildings on Chicago Avenue or downtown? And I'm asking staff, how is that going to happen?
You call the building agents, the leasing agents, or the building managers. It would take
I've
an
been
hour.
a leasing agent. Boy, that'd be bottom of my list of priorities if somebody called and asked.
It still can be done.
I mean, maybe calling the Secretary of State, having them run addresses or something, but that's a huge request, huge.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you.
We're
You're welcome.
You made a motion for hold. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, then it's automatically held until the next meeting.
Which will be on April the 13th.
Alderman Burris, do you have?
Yes, I realized that I forgot something on AP&W.
All right.
So I apologize.
Where are we?
It's A11. We suspended the rules, so we approved on the consent agenda to suspend the rules, but we need to go back. So I'm
thank
sorry
you.
for-
You saved it in time.
Thank you. The committee asks your approval and suspension of the rules for ordinance 26-0-15 to convene a public hearing proposing the establishment of a special service area.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
To suspend the rules.
We did suspend the
We
rules.
did suspend the
Yes, we
rules,
did.
but we have to come back and
So
do
it's
it, yeah.
been moved and
Correction.
seconded. City Clerk, would you call the roll on A11, ordinance 26-015?
Alderman Nguyen? Yes. Alderman Wilson? Alderman Holmes?
Aye.
Alderman Tindem? Aye. Alderman Grover? Yes. Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Burris?
Aye.
Alderman Fisk? Alderman Braithwaite? Aye. 9-0. Passed.
9-0, the motion passes. Does that conclude? Yes. Your report. All right, I think we are at call of the wards. And that's Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be brief. I would like to congratulate you on reaching an historic agreement with Northwestern University for them to contribute $1 million a year for 5 years to our Good Neighbor Fund. Thank you very much for your good work. And the State Department needs you.
Thank you, and please, everyone, thank President Shapiro.
Yes,
who
and I thank
has
Northwestern
a
as well.
wonderful sense of community. Alderman Wilson. Thank you. Alderman Holmes.
Madam Mayor, I'd like just to say what a wonderful, wonderful State of the City address last Friday. It was absolutely, and you really did state, I feel very comfortable with the state of Evanston.
Thank you, and I did state that we needed to look at our ordinances on affordable housing.
Yes, you did.
So that's nothing new. Alderman Tindem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple things. The past month, we've had two horrific house fires both on Harrison Street and the 6th Ward. There are people organizing funds and other means of helping these two families who have lost nearly everything except themselves. So, and if you'd like to get in touch with me, I can tell you details about both of the families where their funds are set up, and I'm sure they would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Alderman Grover.
Poor Harrison Street, poor neighbors. I want to note the passing of a neighbor, Carol Harms. You may have seen her husband, Chuck Lou Harms, who's spoken on the Harley Clark Mansion. Well, Carol was a well-loved neighbor. She lives kitty corner from Independence Park at 2115 Livingston, and what we all knew her for in the neighborhood were her remarkable gardens, which she designed, tended, enhanced, and it was a side yard garden. You looked down at it, and it was just tranquility. So Carol died in January, I believe, after a long illness, and everyone in the neighborhood misses her and worry about her garden now.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with the other alderman that the State of the City address was the best I've ever heard. And thank you for making it the most livable city, which I am hereby declaring it is. We're no longer working on it. We've already achieved it. Sadly, a former mayor who also did a great job, Joan Barr, died this week after a very long illness. She fought cancer years ago and then was plagued with it again and passed away. And her services are Saturday at 10 o'clock at St. Mark's Church. Moving on to something more positive, major announcement, and I hope the international press catches this. Peckish Pig paid its last payment on the patio that they so ripped off the city for. In excess of $18,000 they paid in a very short period of time. Today they posted a picture on their Facebook page. They had set up the patio. It has 5 inches of snow on every piece in there. We have a situation with this Revolution Spin. I know nothing about it other than what I hear a very nice woman, Peggy Tarr, come and talk to us about almost every meeting. I'm getting very concerned about what that issue is, and I would like to hear from our staff exactly their take on this entire problem. I don't know what it is, and I wish I understood it better. Also, I have a first suggestion for the mayors and for the Good Neighbor Fund, and that is 10% annually of the Good Neighbor Fund should be set aside for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Burris.
And just a reminder to the city of Evanston that one of the best aldermen in the city is soon to leave us, and that would be Alderman Burris, and I'm very sad.
I'm annoyed, but I'll call on her anyway.
Thank you. And I want to concur with the State of the City address was fantastic. And also, Alderman, thank you for bringing up the Northwestern payment. As I'm leaving both Northwestern and the city of Evanston in the next month, which seems very fast, it's good to know that we've come such a long way from the relationship, and it goes to credit to, obviously, President Shapiro, as well as obviously Mayor Tisdale, but also the City Council. So even though I'm still employed there for a few more weeks, I feel like I can openly say I'm very thrilled that both of the places where I'm employed are working really well together. And the mayor will be appointing my replacement. We've decided that my last day as a City Council member will be Friday, April 24th. And the mayor will be holding a meeting next Wednesday, April 1st.
I believe so. I'd have to
I believe
check.
that's true.
I'd have to turn my calendar
April
on.
1st, April Fool's Day at 7 p.m. at the Levy Center.
That's not very good.
I'm not really leaving you. To hear from residents of the 9th Ward on what you want to see in your next 9th Ward alderman. I also want to say I'll give a more formal speech in a month from now, but thank you, and I've been honored to serve the 9th Ward over the past 6 years and 3 years on the Plan Commission. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Well said, Alderman Burris. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, along with everyone else, for the great State of the City message and for all of the exciting news that accompanied it. Amazing news, which I've spoken to you about in private, which I think
Thank you.
Incredible. I want to send my condolences to the family of Joan Barr. She crossed party lines back in 1993 to appoint my husband to the city council to fill John Rudy's term when he unexpectedly passed away. And she was a really fascinating woman. Her family, if you just read about her and her dad and her family, it's just fascinating. And then she became an Episcopal deacon after she left the city. So, wow, there's a life in religion after all of us when we leave here. But I do remember being in this council chamber when there were 18 members and all the seating faced that way. And I remember Joan, I was all over there, and I remember Joan sort of wrangling those 18 personalities, which was really amazing. Nothing like the sedate council meetings we have now, but a real Wild West show. So she's just an amazing person, and I feel thankful to have known her and thankful for her service to the city of Evanston. That said, the Women's Club show, which I hope all of you had a chance to attend, was as funny as it could be. It was very funny. We won't go into it now. Maybe Alderman Holmes and I will do like a reprieve of some of the skits. But it was just good, and they're just such. It's such an exciting group, and they do such good works for the city. And so I want to be sure that we thank them.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also want to send a word of condolences to the family for Joan Barr. My personal experience with her wasn't when she was a mayor for city council, but in her ministerial role at St. Mark's Church. So I remember many of Sundays that she would come and visit my father, and she was also there the evening that he passed. So I do plan on attending, and again, to her family, I send a word of condolence and prayer. Switching gears, I also want to thank our city council for the conversation this evening on affordable housing. I think that's something that we all take very passionately. It's more prominent in some wards than others, so I appreciate the willingness and the open conversation this evening. And then also to Alderman Burris, I know we'll have many opportunities to give our goodbyes, but it's been fun. To find one word, fun, to work with you these past years. And we'll have other opportunities, but I did want to get that out there. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. That concludes call of the wards. Alderman Wilson, do you have
Yes, pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss an agenda item regarding personnel and minutes. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. These exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C1, and C21.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.